Hello everyone, in today's video we will see how to create this GIF animated glitch that you can see in here using Adobe Photoshop. Alright, fantastic, so let's get to it. Alright, so I will go ahead and open Photoshop and I will take the image I will be using and open it in here. Now, since we'll be creating a GIF image or a GIF, it's better to crop it to reduce the size a little bit. So I will select the crop tool right here and I will crop it a little bit from the top and from down here too. I will one click on this check mark to commit the change. Alright, after that I will go to image and I will choose image size. As you can see, the size is still big for a GIF. So I will change it to around 1200 pixels for now and I will click OK. Alright, now I will double click on this layer to unlock it. I will name it model and I will click OK. Now I will make 3 copies of the model layer. So I press Ctrl J 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now I will select this copy on top and I will double click on it right here to open the layer style dialog. And in the blending options, I will uncheck the red and blue channels from here. And I will leave only the green channel checked. And I will click OK. Now in this layer right below it, I will double click on it to open the layer style dialog. This time I will uncheck the green channel only. And I will click OK. Alright, now we'll go back to the layer on top. And with the move tool selected, I will move it a little bit to the right using my arrow keys. After that, I will select the layer below it and I will move it a little bit to the left. And as you can see, we'll get this really cool RGB splitting. Alright, now I will select these 3 layers on top using Ctrl and then I will press Ctrl E to merge them in one layer and I will name it RGB. Alright, now this will go from normal to this RGB split. Alright, now I will add a little bit of noise to give it more intensity. So I will go to filter, noise and add noise. I put 12 in the amount and Gaussian is checked and monochromatic unchecked. And I will click OK. Now I will make a copy of this RGB layer. So I will press Ctrl J and I will name it RGB bigger. After that I will press Ctrl T and while I'm holding Shift Alt I will drag to make it a little bit bigger. I will click on this check mark to commit the change. Alright, now we'll hide this RGB bigger layer by one click on this eye icon. After that I will select this layer and then I will select the rectangular marquee tool right here and I will make sure that add to selection is active. And then I will start creating random rectangles and square like this. Alright, about this amount would work. Now I will make sure that I'm selecting this RGB layer and I will press Ctrl J to create a new layer with the shapes of the rectangles I created and I will name it RGB lines. Alright, now we select the move tool and I will move the RGB lines layer to the right or left. Now I will hide these 2 layers and I will select the model layer and then I will press Ctrl J to make a copy and I will name it wind right. Next, I will right click and I will convert it to smart object. Alright, now I will go to filter, stylize, and I will choose wind. Alright, let me zoom out a little bit. In the method, I will select stagger and the direction from the right and I will click OK. Now I will double click on it right here to open the layer style dialog. And then I will uncheck the blue and red channels. And I will click OK. And by doing that we got these colors in the wind glitches right here. Alright, now we'll make a copy of this wind layer, so we'll press Ctrl J and I will name it wind left. Alright, now because it's a smart object, I can double click on this wind filter to modify it. So I will double click on it and I will change the direction to the left. And I will click OK. And now we got the wind from the left. But I will double click on it right here to open the layer style dialog. And I will put a check mark back to the red and the blue channels, but I will uncheck the green channel and I will click OK. Alright, now we'll hide these two layers, and then I will select the model layer to create a new layer on the top. And I will name it lines. After that, I will select the rectangular marquee tool again, and I will make sure that new selection is active in here. After that, I will start creating a few random rectangular lines and squares, and I will fill them with colors such as blue, green, and red. Alright, something like this. And of course you can add more if you like. Now I will hide this layer too, and now we have all the layers to create the GIF image, or a GIF. But as you can see, I only have the original layer of the model visible and selected. Alright, now I will open the timelines down here. If you can't find it, just go to Window and select Timeline from here, alright? Now I will go to this center little button right here. I will click on this drop down and I will choose Create Frame Animation, and I will one click on it. As you can see, this will create one frame that correspond with the model layer that we have active and visible. Alright, now I will one click on the timing and I will choose 0.2 seconds instead. Next, I will create a new frame by one click on this icon. And then I will change the timing of this second frame to 0.1 second. Alright, now we have this first frame corresponded with the model layer right here, okay? So we'll be following the same concept. Alright, now we'll select the second frame, and then I will make the lines and wind right layers visible. Next, I will create a new frame, and then I will hide the wind right layer, and I will make the wind left layer visible instead. And again, I will create a new frame, and then I will make the RGB layer visible. Alright, again, I will create a new frame, and I will make the RGB lines layer visible. Alright, now I will create the last frame. So I will make this RGB bigger layer visible. Just keep in mind that the more frames you add, the larger it will get. Alright, now I will go to this looping option down here, and I will choose forever instead of once. Alright, now it's time to preview our GIF or GIF. So I will one click on this play icon. Alright, awesome. Now it's time to share it with the world. So I will go to File, Export, and I will choose Save for Web Legacy. Now as you can see, our image is a little bit bigger. So I will go down here and I will choose Fit to View. Alright, now we'll change the preset to GIF 128 no dither. And then I will uncheck transparency because we won't need it for this one. And next I will go to matte and I will choose none instead of white. Alright, next I will change the size. As you can see, with this current size, the image is almost 4 megabytes, and that's very large to save for the web. So I will take it down in about 50% right here. And I will click off of that just so it will calculate it. And as you can see, this brought it down to about 700 kilobytes, which is good. Alright, so I'm gonna finish this off by putting 20 in the lossy right here. And this will bring it down to 500 kilobytes, which is better. Alright, now let's go ahead and hit this preview button to see what it would look like on the web. And there we have it, an infinite looping glitch. And down on the bottom we see all the info with the size and everything. Alright, I will go ahead and close the browser to go back into Save for Web window. And I will click Save. I will name it Animated Glitch. And save. Now let's go ahead and open the file where I save it. And let's preview it. And there is our cool looping animated glitch effect in a GIF format or a GIF. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and it was a little bit helpful for you. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and wait for more tutorials to come, and have a nice day. Thank you for watching.